even though Pure Thunder Dragons is still my top tier competitive deck at the moment, one of my favorite archetypes, possibly of all time, is Invoked Mekk Knights, for a few reasons. One, it has made my top 10 because not only is it extremely moldable to the format, but it is extremely adaptable. You can make it in almost any way you want. Make it have a variety of different playstyles, including just turn 1 spam, turn 2 OTK, turn 1 stun. It is extremely fun and extremely competitive if you do it the correct way. Second thing is that it got me my first invite after my long hiatus at the Wilsonville Regionals in Oregon. So without further ado, I think I'm going to give you guys the profile for the most recent list. So for the main deck, you're running 3 copies of Alistair. It is the heart and soul of the entire archetype. It's what brings Mekk Knights and Invoked into complete competitive ability. A 1-card engine that gets you negates or a bunch of attack damage on the field is extremely nice. So you gotta run 3 of it at all times. You have to see it. For the Mekk Knights, I'm running 3 copies of blue, 3 copies of purple, 1 copy of indigo, and 1 copy of yellow. So yellow is more of a personal preference. I prefer yellow over red for a few reasons. One, back row is a lot harder to deal with than monsters, in my opinion. The deck can have the ability to just kill monsters on the field with battle damage or with card effects such as Unicorn. This deck can't really handle back row as easily, so baiting out things like Widow Anchor can be extremely helpful. Also, in the previous list, I was running 2 copies of blue and 3 copies of purple. I've since boosted it again. I figured that right now I have to see as many monsters turn 1 as possible. It allows me to get more bodies on the field to make more link plays and go into an OTK if I'm in the damage range. So, for the last of the monsters, you're playing 3 copies of Effect Veiler and 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Yes, I'm playing commons. It is because this is the most budget deck, in my opinion, the best competitive budget deck because of how cheap it is and how you can get it so cheap. So I decided to play my commons because it felt fitting, you know. 3 Ash and 3 Veiler is probably my favorite lineup of hand traps. I don't think Ogre is that great, at least right now. In the future, it might be better. But Ash being a fire for Purgatrio is extremely helpful, and Veiler being a light for Mekk is also extremely helpful. And I don't own Impermanence at the moment. Even if I did, I might not even play it because I found an almost better option. So, yeah, that's it for the hand traps. For the spells, you play 3 copies of Magical Meltdown, 2 copies of Terraforming, and 3 copies of Mutation. So, for getting access to the fusions, you have to run the maximum amount of Alistair that you can. So, running the 8 copies is extremely important. Also, getting access to Invocation is extremely important. I think running 3 of this is extremely correct for a few reasons. One, if you get hit with the Reincarnation by Trickstars, and you don't have this after you search it off Alistair, your turn's basically over, unless you can somehow make instant fusion with the Link 2. So I've decided to main 3 this. I'm also playing 1 Book of the Law. Something I have a bad habit of doing is making Mekk before I make Purgatrio. I should start making Purgatrio first and then making Mekk with this. That way I can have a turn 2 play if my opponent has to deal with a negate on the field instead of just a big beater that can not attack. So for draw power, I'm playing 2 Desires and an Upstart. I think this is correct. I don't really want to draw into the 3rd Desires. You don't really want to resolve more than one of this. And the Upstart, you don't really worry about damage that much. So for the rest of the spells, you play 3 copies of Called. Getting hit with hand traps is absolute garbage. It really sucks when you get hit with like a Veiler or an Ash on your Terraforming or your Alistair. So having the ability to stop that is extremely helpful. 3 copies of Instant Fusion. This is the only other way you can trigger the Alistair link, and it is also extremely good removal. I play Thousand Eyes, so it helps deal with Colossus and Titan, baiting them out, or I can take my opponent's Kagari or Shizuku. That way they can't use their effective Ray. For the last spells I'm playing, I'm actually maining 3 copies of Forbidden Chalice. So this is, I guess you could say this is boneless impermanence, but in my opinion, I think this is actually a really weird opinion, but I actually think this is better for this deck specifically. One, this deck does not tend to have many turn 2 plays. Not turn 2, but during your opponent's turn, you don't really have many interruptions outside of the 1 Mekk. So having this as another interruption is extremely nice. This also turns off Thunder Dragon Colossus, allowing you to make your searches for a turn, and you don't have to be restricted from having no cards on the field to be able to activate it from hand. So this is, in my opinion, extremely nice. Going into the grinding game, it can also be more damage on the field, so it is extremely good. The last card, one copy of World Legacy Secrets, is what you search off the Mekk link. It is also a call to hand that gets you back your Purgatrios, your Mekkabas, or if you get back, or during the combo you do with Indigo, you revive it off this, and then you turn Indigo into a moving impermanence. So it's really, really good. That's it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra. You play 2 copies of Purgatrio, 2 Mekkaba, 1 Raijin, and 1 Caliga. So this, for me, is the most the best lineup for fusions in terms of the Invoked. So a few things. One, people don't usually run Caliga because it's not really that great of a card. For me, I run it because it turns Invocation into Called by the Grave, stopping Ray in the Striker matchup. So being able to hit that, and then you can actually go for game against that deck. The only way they can actually stop you is if you have Anchor or something, which is given not a big, not unlikely. So yeah. Also, you can actually make this against Thunder Dragons, banishing one of their roars or something, and then they can't use their, at least how I've been ruled before, so that they can't protect with their stuff after that. So Caliga being really good against that matchup as well. It's also an instant fusion target, if you absolutely need it. For the last 2 fusions, you play Roar, or excuse me, you play 1 Restrict and 1 Mud Dragon. This is your instant fusion target in case you brick. If you also go into game 2 or 3, you can side into Super Poly and make this, or what is that card called? It is the Predator Plant fusion monster that outs the Thunder Dragon board. You can also play Titan if you're poor or you don't have the common on you. And Thousand Eyes outs basically any monster you need it to. Striker and Thunder Dragon are good examples. Also stopping Ray, letting you to push for the damage with the Boral Sword Dragon. Boral Sword, this is just the generic links. Boral Sword, Alistair, Morningstar, Unicorn, Phoenix, Lollies, and Linkribo. Boral Sword is what you usually go. It's your secondary win condition. If just stunning out your opponent doesn't work, you can go into this turn 4 and just start killing your opponent. Alistair is your best extender. And this is what you make a lot going first, just to set up the Mekk play with the Indigo and the Mekkaba. And then these are your removal. You're out to Secret Village if you don't have the Alistair, and you're out to your own Thousand Eyes Restrict. And you can actually trigger the Phoenixes with it, so it is really nice. That is it for the deck profile. If you guys enjoyed, or if you have any recommendations for the deck going into this next format. I've not tested it as much as I have in the past, just because I think Thunder Dragons is just a better all-around pick. It's more... it has the ability to protect itself a little bit better, and you can run things like Eradicator and the Kaiju engine in the main, depending on what build you're going to or what game you're going into. So, that's it. I'll see you guys later. Bye.